Advisory Board meeting for Monday, May 12th. Trish, you can call the roll.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Aaron's.
Here.
Kogaleski.
Here.
Michelson.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Rule. Schuessler.
Here.
Wilson. Wooler.
Here.
Okay, in your packets, we've got minutes from the March 10th meeting. Any additions or corrections?
So moved.
Gary, second.
Second.
Bill Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Going to park business, we've got two things on the agenda. Discuss and recommend South Park Master Plan and discuss and recommend 5-year CIP. So with that, Ray, you want to turn it over?
Sure, I'll start it out, Bill, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeff from Rutler again. As you're aware, we've been going through the South Park Master Plan, and Jeff will kind of go through the history on how we've gotten to this point. What you should have received in your packet was the draft South Park Master Plan. Should look very similar to our Corp and our Rainbow Park Plan and our Menominee Park Plan. Jeff's going to go through that, kind of synopsis some of the high points of it, and just summarize some of that. And what we're looking for tonight, if the board is comfortable with this document, is moving it forward to the Common Council for final approval. As you probably noted throughout the 5-year CIP, which is also on the agenda, we have started to earmark and insert some of the projects for South Park in the 5-year CIP. So that's this document, along with our other master planning documents, are our basis for all our CIPs that you'll be seeing coming out for the duration. So Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Jeff Bowling again with Rattler Corporation. Thank you for having me. We're coming to another end of a cool project. On all these master plans, we always try to get a good idea how the existing conditions are, get a feel for the needs of the community and the users and the staff, combine and put together some concepts and develop one master plan for the future vision of the park, and then good cost estimates as well to go along with it. And this one's no different. What's really cool about this park is, in my mind, what was it, in 1889, I believe, the park was actually dedicated as a park. And that park's been there quite a long time. And if you can't see those pictures here, but in the bottom picture you can see the same old bridge that's there. So that's pretty cool. That's a lot of history. A lot of people have walked over that park, a lot of people, or that bridge, and in the park. It's a pretty neat part of the city and its history. Like I said, it's around 24 acres in size, the park. It's one of the most popular parks of the city. It has about 3 acres of the lagoons, and the lagoons are a big part of the project. If you recall, we actually worked with the city engineering department on that. And we have some goals and objectives for the lagoons within the master plan. We also, with the help of the city, you can see the lines on the screen, hopefully. There's a lot of sanitary and water lines. Some are no longer active, but there are a lot of spaghetti lines through both sides of the park around the lagoons that has stormwater, sanitary, and water. Also, the park's getting older. A lot of the existing shelters are showing age of getting old and wore out. This tends to upgrade some of those items, including some of the other infrastructure as far as lighting throughout the park, underground utilities, and hard surfaces. So, again, the park's been used. It's popular. It just needs some upgrades to get a little bit upgraded. So we went through and really started to understand what the existing conditions were like. At that time, as you guys know, we're always into these need assessments to figure out what people want to see in the parks. This one, the methodology of gathering all the needs for this one was real similar. We talked to the park staff. We spoke with the user groups. There was 15 user groups that we contacted. Of those, 9 responded. Some of the things we heard from those two groups were walking trail improvements, ash trees in the park will eventually need to be removed or thinned out. The World War II memorial needs some upkeep. The horseshoe area needs to be renovated, the shelter renovations, and then the lagoons had some issues. Also, the more restrooms, newer restrooms. Real similar to, if you can remember when we did the comprehensive park plan, that was one of the highlights as well. We also had a public meeting, if you remember, back in September of 2013, quite a while ago, and there were a lot of folks there. Some of the big discussion points that night were the addition of a new inclusive playground for South Park. This is a location that new playground is going to be located at, so that's a pretty big use. The preservation of lagoons and the stormwater management need to be improved. Again, restroom and shelters, the park trails, those types of things. Obviously, there were everybody all had specific needs, stormwater management issues from some of the neighbors there. The goose and the duck problems, dogs in parks, same old things we hear all the time that staff is working on. Shelters, bathrooms, fencing, and then just making sure things are taken care of once they're improved. And more playgrounds were a great idea from a lot of the folks. So we had a pretty good shopping list with some major goals and objectives for the plan. And we came back here and we solidified those goals. And then we developed a few different conceptual plans. And those it might be a little hard to see up above, but we had two different conceptual plans and really came up with this one, the preferred master plan or preferred vision plan. And I'm just going to walk through some of the things that are on this plan. It's all in the book. I just wanted to highlight this west side of the park first. In the northwest corner, the basketball courts, if you remember, a new open shelter and 10 parking spots, and some sand volleyball courts. So really taking that underutilized part of the park and trying to make it a little more active, maybe get some of the older children, young adults to maybe locate in that part of the park with the addition of the playground in the middle, center part of the park. Upgrade the horseshoe pits, renovate the fencing along the property line there for those north property owners and for the park. Add 64 parking spaces to the park. New restroom building, splash pad additions, new walkways and accessible walkways from parking lots throughout this space to make it accessible. A new plaza space with canopies and shade for those with disabilities, as well as a small restroom located next to those center point shelter areas. Renovate Shelter 1, that's kind of a big project. That's a really popular rental. Improve it, renovate it, keep it in the same spot, but make it better and newer. Roof, floors, walls, components of electricity. 16-car parking space. The Universal Playground's located right here. So we added parking all around and a large parking lot to really handle this center hub of the park. Anybody have any questions on this section of the park? I kind of went through it fast, but we've all seen it before. But so really improving the restrooms and the buildings that are there, and improving the parking and the circulation and adding that inclusive playground. So it's going to be a very highly active part of the park, which it is now. But I think the layout really provides some safety for people in the center area, having the parking surrounding it. So kids and folks can move freely and safely throughout this area. And it's going to be quite a park once all that's fixed up, especially that inclusive playground. All right, moving on. Obviously, the lagoons and the stormwater were big items. Obviously, those are quite aesthetic, aren't they? The lagoons are a great part of the park. But they also function as for stormwater as well. So, unfortunately, over the years, they've been filled in with silt and erosion on the shorelines. So they really need to be dredged out and made deeper for better water quality. Potentially also put in a fountain for aeration to keep the water quality better as well. And then with that, the cold water of the quarry feeding the the lagoons is good water. There is a plan in here that if that was taken away, how water would be supplemented in that case, and that would be through a high-capacity well of some sort, and the stormwater together working for that water source. We also looked at fishing spaces or viewing spaces of limestone steppers around the edge of the lagoon, and we have those in just some select areas. It would actually build right out of the water where people can look at wildlife or fish or just relax on a beautiful day like today. Actually, before. Looks like it might rain again. Here's the existing bridge. We thought, let's celebrate the outside edges of the bridge. We understand a lot of people take their wedding pictures there or retirement pictures, that if we really created a destination versus people just hanging out in the grass and getting muddy shoes, that we created some nice hard surface on both sides where they could congregate and wait for these pictures to be taken, as well as creating a neat entrance over the bridge on both sides. So we believe that turned out pretty well too. Moving up on this picture to tennis courts, we're looking at resurfacing. They're in pretty good shape, but they need some fencing and resurfacing. I'm kind of going fast. I've gone through most of that. I just wanted to get to this picture that shows the east side of the park. So then as we move further to the east, we actually widened this area of this lagoon and made it larger. We felt that, yeah, it is taking away some of the green space, but the value of that bigger pond would do a lot for the park as far as stormwater and aesthetics. So that's a proposal in there, as well as improve spillways to increase the stormwater storage in these ponds. If we raise the spillways and lower the water level a little bit, we can really enhance the storage capacity in that park. And we've been talking, had some conversations with the consultant for the city and the city engineering department on this Stringham Creek watershed that really is part of this park. So we were in pretty good harmony with some of the ideas that we came up with as well as they did, and combined with some good goals and objectives. Energy efficient lighting throughout the parks, folks, just like some of the other plans, looking at LED lights for that. Making the shared use paths newer. We also provided price for new blacktopping of those areas. And then all these entry corridors for your community as far as entry statements, starting to make those all work together in harmony. Right now they're a little bit eclectic of different eras and different shapes and sizes and colors. If we could make that a little more consistent, it might be a nice idea. A neat part of this park is right now this shelter's all alone by itself without any parking, without any sort of restrooms. This plan provides an idea of some parking spaces and a restroom added to that shelter. So that could be quite a quaint, it is a quaint little space right now. If we can increase the accessibility by having a handicap parking space and getting people closer to that with their coolers and their venues, the rentals even go up even more. So this part of the park becomes actually a pretty nice place to visit versus before you'd kind of have to time your walks or whatever for the restroom use. So it's going to be really a neat part of the park, this corner in this part of the park here. We talked a lot about stormwater, probably too much, but that is a big component of those ponds. It's conceptual in nature right now. But again, we have goals and objectives listed right on the master plan. We're starting to show some shoreline stabilization methods on the side. We have budget allowances in our cost estimate. Probably more numbers than you ever wanted to see, but we have a cost estimate that's like this, that's very general, that shows all the overall cost. But if you look inside the book, you'll notice on all of our projects that we've done for you, we've always created a line item cost estimate budget sheet. This way Chad and Ray and the staff, maybe they can't do a whole one of those parking lots. Maybe they just want to do a part of the walks. They can actually see unit prices for gravel and concrete and that sort of thing, and pick and choose as they go along. So we're hoping this is a good tool to use in the future. when we add up all the costs of South Parks, it's, you know, just like everyone, you guys haven't run me out of town yet, but they're always big numbers. I always get dirty looks from this side of the table over here. But the numbers are what they are. It's a big site. All these plans look so nice and cute on these little aerial maps that we show. But if you go out and walk around the park a couple times, you'll know how big it is. It's pretty big. So when you redo all the blacktop, when you redo all the parking lots, when you redo all the grass, and when you redo all the landscaping, it takes an awful lot of energy, labor, and materials. So you can see the lagoon and some of those things were some quite big numbers down here. You know, over $2 million, almost $3 million just for that. Dredging, we talked to your dredging contractor that you've used in the past, and that's not a cheap way to go. But they do need to be dug out. It would help a lot. It's just there's going to be some big costs for that. So, you know, $7 million for a 125-year-old landmark that you have, that's a lot of money, yeah. But it's touched a lot of people, and it's going to touch a lot more people in the future. So, again, it doesn't all have to be done at once. It can be chipped away a little bit at a time and go from there. I know I went fast and furious. I think you've had the book for at least a couple days, and I'm sure you read it front to back. I know Jim already caught a couple of my errors on his trail widths, and that's good. All the trails will be at least 10 feet wide. I know he likes them wider than that, but this park's a little tighter. But we do have 5-foot walks around the playground areas, so I'm going to fix that in the book when I take it back. Anybody have any questions, or did I overlook something too quickly? Is it looking good?
One thing, Jeff,
Yeah, I can go back.
you've got the lagoons at 27 or 2.7 million.
Yeah.
That is total. That's not just the dredging, because in the dredging you have 1.2 million.
Yeah, it's more than that. It's the dredging. It's some of the shoreline stabilization. Yep.
The whole
Yep.
enchilada.
We tried to put as much together as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Bill, a lot of that's not going to be our burden, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm assuming there's DNR money, there's stormwater, everybody is going to be pitching in on that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, we have allowances in here. Obviously, when the big study's done, they'll have even better numbers that they can apply towards it. But at least we're on the same wavelength, that we're all thinking the same thing, and they might have a better way to join it with another project, find a place for the fill, stuff like that. So.
Before I turn it over to the board, anybody in the audience for citizen statements on South Park? Okay, seeing none. Board? Any questions for Jeff or comments? Jim?
I think the plan looks great. I think it really, Jeff did a good job of, surveying all the people, neighbors, the board, all the community, and I think the plan really looks nice.
I agree. Anybody else? Seeing no other comments, we need a motion to pass this on. Bill Miller, second. Jim Michelson. Trish, you want to call the roll?
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Aaron's.
Aye.
Ogleski.
Aye.
Michelson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Schuessler.
Aye.
And Wooler.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Have a good summer when it comes, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Okay. All right, moving on. 5-year CIP. Great.
Well, the Common Council has requested that the administrative staff provide the budget documents and the CIP sooner in the year, so that's why we're jumping into this a little bit sooner than we have in the past, and I think it's a good idea if we can get this to the board, take a look at it like we have. We'll go through it and take a look at each annual listing, but what I'd like for the board to focus on this evening is the 2015 CIP plan. Again, what we've tried to do is keep it consistent with what was in last year's CIP. There are some projects that maybe get moved around or we're recommending get moved around, but for the most part, this is consistent with what you might have approved last year. We can talk about any of the projects throughout the document, But again, I think the most time spent this evening would be on, I know the council likes to see this from the park board, is the prioritization for this coming year. So we can talk about those projects and kind of talk about if you want to move anything up and down on this list. Then what I do is I'll go back, prioritize it based on the input tonight, provide it to the city manager and the council so that they can see where our priorities for the next couple of years are. So we'll start with 2015. This is the CIP for the parks, forestry, cemetery, and golf course that we are recommending. The first project, if you recall, we had the Rainbow Park master plan completed, and what we're looking at is to get that project in for 2015. Essentially, that's all the launch work that we had anticipated. If you recall, in the Rainbow Park master plan, we talked about it as the north and the south portion of the park. This is essentially the entire portion of the north. That includes the reconfiguration of traffic, so it's not going past the boat launch, the parking lot reconstruction, and a number of the others. So take a look in your Menominee Park master plan. You'll see that these dollar figures correlate. What we have in this year's budget, 2014, is to hire a designer or a consultant to help us begin the design of the master plan, or the launch improvements over at Rainbow. So that's one of the things that I've been working on, is talking with some of our consultants to get a cost estimate from them on what it would cost for them to come in and help us start designing that. I've had some conversation with Jeff because he's so intimately involved with our plans already. So I'm waiting for some proposals to come back in. We would begin that design work this year, and if the council agrees to fund this project, we would look at construction in the 2015. South Park redevelopment per the plan.
Ray,
which,
can I stop you?
Yes, yep.
So can you detail, because we've got a lot of additional funds coming in for this too, right? I mean, this is private and DNR and
Yeah,
everybody.
we do have, currently, there's a grant that was going to be utilized at the Boatworks property along the Riverwalk. I think that's about a $225,000 grant. Because we don't have motorized boat facilities at that section of the Riverwalk, our community development department is working with the DNR to see if we can shift that $225,000 grant into this project. We would be using a lot of the boat launch fund, and to date, I should have looked at it, Trish, I think we're at about $120,000 in that
Okay.
boat launch fund. So we'll be using a good portion of the boat launch fund for some funding for this, and I think the council really likes to see that, needs to see that we're having grant funding, we're having some of the boat launch
Right.
fees used to pay some of this.
And I think that's great. So.
Yep. And this is total cost. If we can phase it in any ways, we'll take a look at doing that, but because we're looking at doing the north side, it's really all encompassing of the boat launch, and it's kind of hard to phase those areas in.
I agree.
So again, what I do is suggest after you go home tonight, take a look at your Rainbow plan that you should have a copy of, and you'll see that those numbers do correlate. It gives you a breakdown of each individual project and what we'd be looking at. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to stop me on any of these as we're going through. Next one, South Park redevelopment per the plan. What I'm suggesting is we would like to redo the restroom, and the restroom is...
To the east, to the
Nope, this would be the one that's located near the shelters, near the playground equipment.
okay.
Only one that's there now.
The one that's there now. And the reason for that is we'd really like to have something that's ADA compliant, because the inclusive playground, the universal playground, they're getting close to their fundraising goal. If you recall, 2.5 years ago, I think it was, the group came to this committee and to the council. The council has committed $100,000 with the obligation of the committee to raise $100,000. I believe they're at about $85,000 raised to date. But the project cost is up at about $275,000. So even though we may reach that $200,000, we want to continue to raise our funds up to that $275,000 so it covers the entire project. We'd rather not break ground unless we have that entire project funded.
Is it going to be similar? Is it going to be similar to the one we just finished in Menominee?
Similar to the one.
The new restrooms and shelter at Menominee Park?
We really haven't gotten into design of that.
Okay.
We are trying to use that consistently in our other park areas. For example, Stevens Park, you'll see down the line here. That is kind of our footprint or our prototype that we'd like to use. It helps us when we're doing maintenance on those facilities, whether it's the urinals or the sinks or some of the exterior, if we can order some of the building supplies and use them throughout the parks, it really helps us.
That's
So-
just a Cracker Jack little cookie cutter thing. I like
Yep.
it a lot, so.
So there would be, what we're recommending is a new restroom facility located there. Again, it'd be ADA compliant, and obviously we'd want to do that because of the heavy use of the inclusive playground, which we're looking at. Next item, and I know this one has been on Jim's mind for a number of years, is to repave the asphalt path at William Steiger Park. This is the section that goes from Wisconsin Avenue Bridge to the Steiger Boat Launch, essentially the entire section of Fox Valley Tech and behind the Senior Center. That portion's in pretty rough condition, and I think it's something that we really need to do. It's a connection to the Riverwalk now, so we're seeing a lot more people using it for their runs, their walks, but just on a daily use. So we'd like to get that project completed next year as well. Menominee Park improvements, again, we put per the plan. This has been a placeholder we had in there. It's for trail work. What we would do is get out there and take a look at some of the most necessary reconstruction on the trail that we need to do, some of the widening of the trails. There's some within the zoo that we'd like to try to do within this plan as well. So Menominee Park improvements, we'd like to incorporate some trail work out there. And again, it's a placeholder of $200,000, similar to what we've done in the past with the council. With the HVAC and some other parking lot improvements, we're trying to get a placeholder for a dollar amount, saying if we can get this dollar amount, let us get as much trail work done and with that dollar amount each year, and that's what we're trying to do.
Ray?
Yes.
And that would include those real minor little a couple of those little spurs we talked about and.
Yep, well, we'll take a look at our Menominee Park
To hook
plan.
into, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Some of those higher priority path works that we had talked about throughout the entire planning process. Stevens Park Shelter Restroom, this has been in the plan for a number of years. I did reduce the cost to about $200,000. The reason for that is we do have in this year's budget, I believe, $30,000 for the design work of that facility. So that's why I reduced the total project cost. When it came to the council last year at the CIP, it was decided that they could not fund the entire project in 2014. So they said, let's hopefully get it designed this year and then built in 2015. And I am working with a local consultant to get some numbers together for his design services to help us start designing that building this year as well. So you should see some designs coming forward later on this year yet. 24th Avenue Boat Launch restroom update. This is one that was actually funded this year by the council, but they funded it because or not because, but they funded it with the caveat that if the inclusive playground raised their $100,000, we would have to shift some of our projects around. Even though I'd like to get the 24th Avenue Boat Launch update completed this year, I'm pretty optimistic that the playground is going to be constructed in South Park. So we had to do some shifting of projects in order to free up that $100,000 that the city has committed. So we'd be pushing off the 24th Avenue Boat Launch till 2015. And what we would do there is similar to what we've done at the Lakefly Cafe, at Abe Rochland. Have we done any other ones, Chad? I think those were the two that we started with. So what we do is come in and essentially gut out the interior of the building, make it ADA compliant, and put in more efficient plumbing and lighting and ventilation and so forth. The Taking Root project, this is year 6 of the city's commitment of $25,000. So that's really a project that the city had committed to back in 2009, I believe, when they said that they would commit to at least 6 years of this project. Port in place surfacing at Little Oshkosh, Sea, Sand, and Sailorland. I don't know how much we've really let this board know, but Chad is working really closely with Southwest Rotary on a renovation project of Little Oshkosh, which is going to take place in October of this year. Southwest Rotary is getting behind this because they were the spearhead of the project when it was initially constructed back in the late 90s. They do see the need for some repairs down there, so they wanted to help us out by getting out and doing some fundraising. So we have another meeting on next Monday to start honing down the budget. They're going to go out and start knocking on doors to get some funding to help us get the project renovated. I think we're looking at October 10th through the 13th as the project date. They'd come in and we do it over a 3-day period, a lot of volunteers and a lot of donated work and in-kind services. So part of the port in place surfacing, we're hoping that we can get done through that project. And then what we'd like to do is that $100,000 would probably cover the CSAN and Sailorland playground, assuming that we can get Little Oshkosh done with the Rotary project this fall. The next one is design services for Menominee Park and Reeds Fields. If you recall, in the Menominee Park plan, that one of the highest priorities in there was the parking issue as well as the Reeds Fields complex. So what we're looking at is for design services to start looking at how can we get that project completed. They'd take a look at the parking plan that was included in the Menominee Park master plan, as well as the complex itself. So we'd improve the ball diamonds, we'd do the concession stand. So just not to jump too far ahead, but if you take a look at 216, the next page, 2016, assuming we get the funding in 2015 for the design of Reeds Fields, we would construct in 2016 the Reeds Fields improvements as well as the parking lot. That parking lot is an issue every summer for whether it's ball diamond use or fishing tournament use, traffic flow. So it's something that we feel is high on the priority to get completed at Menominee Park.
The design of that is $215,000?
Yep.
We
And
just sit down and put that on a piece of paper.
actually, when you take a look at any of these plans, Jeff will give you, just to give you an example, Terry, if you look at his contingency on this project, and again, this is going back to South Park, contract administration, he's got in here about $500,000 if we were to do the entire $7 million project. So he'll give us design costs. He'll work with us to say, what's it going to cost for a design consultant to come in and do that? The biggest thing is the parking lot and to make sure that the stormwater management is taken care of. That's going to be a big issue out there. So that is a recent cost estimate that we did just get. Because when you're looking at about a $2 million project, it's about 10% of the project cost.
Terry, you're in the wrong business.
I gotta learn how to draw.
So that's how the projects start to correlate. Like I said, if we do design in 1 year, we're hoping that construction would be in the years following. Back to 2015, cemetery roads repaving. This is a project that we always try to get some funding again over at the cemetery to help Bill and his staff to keep the roads in decent shape over there. So we're making that request again of the council. And then Steve has a project in here for some cart path paving at the golf course of $75,000. So you're taking a look at about $2.8 million in requests, a large one being obviously the Rainbow Park Master or the launch improvements.
Did the cemetery paving get cut last year?
We haven't
Did
had
you
it
get the
since
money?
2010, Bill, was it?
Right, yeah, we
I was
did.
gonna say, we've been putting it in every year and we never
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, it's gotten bumped the last couple of years.
I was gonna say sooner or later you're gonna have to before, yeah, okay.
Yep,
I thought it got cut last year's too.
yeah.
And is this, I noticed, it's in there a couple years later, is this for a portion of the roads then?
Yeah, it's just 4 different areas. Let's see, we did about $25,000 worth of work a few years ago. We work with our city street department and they do the work. And so it's basically cost of materials.
What is it, $25,000 worth of paving out there, what does that amount to as far as a relative percentage of the roads that are?
I don't know exactly what percentage it would be, but it's a pretty good chunk usually. I'd say probably on the order of maybe 800 yards of road. They're not real wide, so.
It's enough to fill in the holes where you're gonna lose your car anyway, so.
Or a body?
Yep. So that takes us through 2015, and I guess what I'd like to do is get your input on, again, I didn't prioritize these. I do give you kind of a feel what we'd like to see, but I'd like to go through and get some ideas from the board on top priorities and.
Ray, what does this stack up against what was approved last year by the council for us?
The projects in the last couple of years have been cut back because of the central garage project, and I see that happening again this year. The central garage is a project that once in a lifetime for a lot of the city staff, so that project's got priority. I couldn't give you a dollar amount, but a number of
Okay.
our projects were cut.
And
One-
and I didn't try to pin you down, I'm sorry, I just thought if you knew it was fine.
I didn't know offhand, but I would say we've had about $200,000 in projects funded through either CIP or through some of the great neighborhood projects that, through community development, which has really been helping us a lot.
10%.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Ray, I noticed here and for the next couple of years, there's no equipment listed on these. Is
Yep.
that- I know there was a lot of equipment this past year that was included in the CIP for the Parks Department. Is that,
And actually, the equipment projects, or the major equipment, we don't typically bring to this board. It's the projects, because the equipment is more driven by the hours of service, the mileage on the equipment and so forth. So it's more of a matter of, we know it needs to be done, and it has to compete against all the other city equipment. So you'll see that as a council member, but typically the board is more in tune with the projects.
Rick?
I was just looking at this, I just wondered if this cart path paving, if the building wouldn't be more important than the cart path paving. I don't know, it's up to Steve, I guess. Priority wise, I think we could use a building out there more than we could use cart path paving.
Well, I agree the building's really important, especially to me, but I think the cart paths would be a revenue generator. Just the aesthetics of having paved paths would do a lot for the perception of Lake Shore. And the reduction in maintenance, the reduction in dust, the reduction in potholes, that we deal with and are dealing with right now again. As much as I like the building, don't get me wrong,
We've been without paved cart paths for as long as I can remember up there.
True, but we're trying to attract more customers, and what we have there now really leaves, a sour taste in a lot of people's minds, I guess. It needs to be done if we want to compete, I think.
Steve, on that subject, how much is that 75,000 covering? That's not the whole golf course.
That's not the whole golf course, no. Approximately half of it.
Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah, I like the list. I don't have anything that I'd like to see move forward, out of future years, and I think the general list, from what I see, in general, looks pretty good.
Okay, I got a question for Ray. If, say, the council pushes this Rainbow Park boat launch out, are we possibly going to lose that 225,000 that could be shifted over?
Yeah, there's going to be a deadline for when the grant needs to be utilized, and the DNR will typically give you extensions on that. And so I need to get a little further details from our community development director. I know they're waiting to hear word from the DNR. I think there was just some paperwork and some paper trail that needed to be done before the DNR would say, yes, we're going to allow use of the funds here.
Okay.
So I'll have to get that deadline, and that's something the council will have to weigh in on. If we don't get the project approved and ready to go, whether it's in 2015 or 2016, depending on how long the grant's available for, then that is something the council needs to be made aware of, is if we don't fund the project, the grant funding could go away.
Okay.
Yes.
Question for you now, Sean. If this is approved, how is the council prepared to pay for this?
I can't tell you exact funds, but I know in the last year, there's been a pretty strong commitment to fund projects that are receiving some additional funding from outside dollars. So if there's a project where there's grant dollars and the burden isn't solely on the taxpayer, we've been creative with TIF funding, moving money from other areas within the city to make sure that those projects get done so that we don't miss out and lose out on those grant opportunities. So I would imagine, I'm not giving you a guarantee today, but I would imagine there'd be a strong likelihood that there would be every effort made to accommodate a project before the grant funding would run out.
Okay. And for you, Trish, we've upped our boat launch fee to, what, $5, and then whatever the yearly and 3-year passes.
More like 10.
What would you see this boat launch fund going to? As far as dollar-wise, you said about 125,000 in there?
Currently, yes. And I think when we were putting the numbers together last year, when we brought the fee increases forward, without having that in front of me, I want to say we were estimating about an additional $30,000 to $35,000 annually that the increased fees will generate. In addition.
We usually normally bring in around, what, 60?
Bring in 60, but expenditures vary based on the projects. So we may pull a project out, like we did the cruiser docks last year at $60,000. So that was essentially a wash. So we weren't tapping into the fund as much like we are going to be on this project, because we are going to need a good chunk of the funding here. So,
Right.
that 100,000 has been building over a number of years.
Right, but we don't have anything in 2014 taking out of the boat launch?
Yeah, the design cost for Rainbow Park
Right,
is
that
a
would be
cost
for
that will be coming out.
2014.
No projects.
Nothing is, so, okay. And then along with the grants, it's probably going to be a pretty good chunk that we're going to put towards that, I would believe. That 1.6. Well, actually, it's 1.8 with the design. Right.
1.6 is the project cost.
Oh, that's Menominee, okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
there was a different
My
design.
fault, okay. All right.
So-
Anybody- Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's going to take some creative financing, and as I said, the central garage project is top priority, I know, for 2015 yet. So if it gets bumped back, knowing that the grant funding would still be available, those are all details that we need to work out and bring forward as we're getting into the budget discussions with the council. So,
Any other items?
So, anything that's being done in South Park, is that part of a previous plan, and is that playing it all into this new plan that we're proposing to go forward with?
that would be part of the new proposed plan from tonight. Yes.
South Park restrooms, I think that's pretty much tops on my list. That's pretty bad. Repairs in that Stevens Park shelter and restroom, I think we've tried that a couple of years now.
We had it in our plan, but it just came up for funding last year, and then the council played around with the dollars and said we can fund the design in anticipation of hopefully funding the construction in 2015. So I think there's a pretty good likelihood, if it's not 2015, that 16 it would get funded, but
What I'm kind of looking at is the stuff we've been dropping off, and that's why I asked about the cemetery roads. I mean, that's still repairs, and we kind of said years ago we want to start repairing the stuff we've got. We said that a long time ago, not that we've been doing it, but we made an honest effort to do it. I'd like to leave that on there. I mean, not put it to number one, but I think it's something that we have to do, because like I knew they've been dropping it off the last few years. And sooner or later, it's going to get so bad that you still have to do it.
Well, I think the reason Stevens got pushed back was because Frankfurt just got new roads and all of that work was stubbing in the utilities and everything, correct? I mean, that was,
well, Stevens got pushed back because of the funding issue. There wasn't money available. They were able to fund the design of that, but not the construction.
okay.
And then the Taking Root project, we're obligated to that, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that's fine, I mean, they're all pretty, I'm not arguing with any of them, but there's things I'd like to see done that have been taken out for the last couple of years anyway.
The one thing too with South Park, Terry, is it was deferred to from a few years ago to wait to get through the master plan before we started.
Oh, I know.
That stuff.
No, that one I know wasn't, yeah. But we've been talking about it, and it's in bad shape.
Sean?
Bill, and I think that's what the council really wants to hear, what, which of these are priorities, because I think when it comes down to it in the end, not all of this is going to get funded. It ends up being a wish list. And
Oh, we know that. You're talking 10%.
so these CIP, I mean, these are coming from every department in the city, and when we get all these in the end, so we see, okay, there's $100 million in CIP projects for the year citywide, and we can fund 10 million of them, and really, one of the reasons this is coming together as a 5-year plan is we're looking to scale back a little bit on the borrowing that the city's been doing the last 8 to 10 years, because it's been a lot, but we've gotten a lot done and at a very cheap borrowing rate and cheap construction rate. So whatever, I mean, those kind of priorities, the council is really going to look to look to this board to say, hey, this has been pushed off for a number of years and it needs to get, that'll carry a lot of weight when council gets out and discussing the CIP budget.
I know both the council and the city manager look at the prioritized list first when they start looking at our budget, saying, all right, the Parks Board has given us input that these are priorities. So if you see something, Terry, like the cemetery roads that you really feel we want to bump up, I would say bump those up. That gives them a little more clout.
Because we've been bumping them off 3 years, and that's,
I don't think we have been.
no, they have been. We've been putting them on, they have been.
Right.
But again, back to Bill's point, I think, if we're gonna lose $200,000 or $300,000 by not doing that, the boat launch at Rainbow Park, I think that's gotta stay at the top of the list. I mean, that's free money, so.
It's free money, but they're gonna have to do some really big, because they're gonna have to come up with over $1 million.
Right.
I mean, that takes care of about 3/4 of the city here already.
Well, and
They gotta come up with $1 million, and they aren't.
there's creative ways to do it, though, too. You can fund a portion of the project in 15 and carry it over into 16, split the funding.
If you can keep DNR says that's okay.
Right. And there could be potentially other grants out there that we can take a look at as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of other ones.
Fishing clubs in the area, boating
Yeah,
clubs in the
There's
area.
a lot of other ones. What are you laughing at?
I'm just, you make my entire Mondays, just so you know.
So any changes to the listing, or should we leave it as is for now? I'm
Fine
open.
with the way it is. I agree with Jim. I think it's a great list, and let's just try
Seems like they pretty much pick and choose anyway. I mean, the priority is important, we realize that, but from other years, you see they're picking and choosing anyways, but the priority is important.
The item numbers aren't necessarily in order of
Not on this sheet, but after this board, I will be taking this as a priority
As a
list.
prioritized list. Right. Yeah.
So
Top to
yeah,
highest to lowest.
So if you want the cemetery roads and the taking root projects moved up, now's the time to do it.
You want to move it out in front of maybe the Stevens Park shelter restroom, something which is.
I want Stevens Park,
probably a good idea.
taking root, and cemetery roads paving
As,
right after South Park restrooms.
so you want Stevens Park number 3?
Wasn't the repaving, wasn't that pushed out too? That was last year's, right? That was pushed out also, wasn't it?
Which one?
Number 3?
Repave asphalt
Yeah,
path?
that got pushed, that got pushed out too.
Yeah, that was
It
bumped
didn't
back a
get
year.
approved.
That was another one that got,
Yep. Number 3 was on last year.
Start at number 4.
And never got approved.
So you want Stevens Park at number 4, Terry?
okay.
All right. What
Then the
about
cemetery
taking
roads?
Taking root at
Well,
5?
cemetery roads 5,
Cemetery
taking
road.
route 6. Because that one they're gonna have to do anyway. We're obligated for that one. I don't even know why it's on here.
Well, we have to show it.
I have to show it, but we still have to do it.
My suggestion was put that one at 11 because it has to be funded.
All
But
right, that's a good spot for it, 11, okay.
And hope your city manager isn't watching the meeting right now.
he's a wise man.
So we
which
got
one did we
4 or
put-
5. We got 1 Rainbow Park boat launch. Okay. South Park, William Steiger. Then
There we
Well, you gotta read
Stevens.
it.
4 is Stevens Park,
Right,
and 5 is Cemetery Roads.
yep. Are you putting the taking root project down at 11?
Yeah. That is smart, because we have to do it. They haven't got a choice.
Okay, so we're at number 4, Menominee Park improvement.
Well, that's right after, that's 7,
That would be 6.
That'd be 6.
That would be 6.
or 6.
Okay,
You need to take your shoes off?
7 is gonna be 24th boat launch.
Yes.
8 stays the same, 9 stays the same, and cart paths move up to 10.
Yep.
We didn't want to just leave it the same, then you wouldn't have nothing to do tomorrow.
You're creating work for Trish, not Ray.
You mean Ray don't do all that? Look at the surprised look on my face.
All right, so Trish, do you have it all?
Yep.
You want to read through it?
Read through the list, yeah.
Yeah, so we got it in the correct order? Everybody's happy?
One's Rainbow Park boat launch improvements, 2 South Park redevelopment plan, 3 repave asphalt path in Williamsburg Park, 4 Stevens Park restroom, 5 is cemetery roads repaving, 6 is Menominee Park improvements, trail asphalt work, 7 is 24th Avenue boat launch restroom update, 8 is poured in place surfing Little Oshkosh Seasand Sailorland, 9 design services for Menominee Park parking and Reeds Fields, 10 is cart path paving at golf course, and 11 is the Taking Root project.
Any questions on that order? Any further discussion? Need a motion to pass it forward by Bill, second.
Yep.
Megan.
Megan?
No,
She's quicker than you.
I put my hand up there.
oh, you pointed at, I thought you pointed at me.
Your name's always in the minutes anyway. You're always in the minutes.
You're way too ugly for a Megan.
Okay, do we need a roll? Yes, we do need a roll in it.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Aaron's, Kukaleski,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schuessler,
Aye.
Fuller.
Okay, 2016, do we really need to attempt that?
I don't,
I would like
Is
to
this-
discuss
Because
some of
there's
the
going to be
items
things added to it
2016.
next year.
Jim, you do?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
really, that's one of the only ones I really want to talk about.
All right.
It has to do with the number 7 and number 8, routes and perimeter walks and Abe Rochland Park access routes. Kind of looking at trails or walks in the park, to me, I think, in my opinion, one of the highest ones that should be done in 2016, possibly replacing one of those, would be the one at Tight Miller. The east-west access going through the park, which would really open up the park, and today you can't. I mean, when it's wet, you can't walk across the grass. You have the access coming in from the east and the west, where you have the accesses. We did the work there already, right, playground, and that, to me, before any of these other ones and other parks should be done, I think that should be done.
The good news for you, Jim, is we do have money in this year's budget to do those projects. That was part of what was
Really?
approved in 2014 as part of the Great Neighborhoods Program funding, I believe. So there is money in there for path work at Tech Miller for this year.
I thought it was just in the playground area.
No.
They're going to do an east to west pathway?
We need to take a look at some of those, the easements. The easements aren't very wide, especially the one on the east side of the park. I think there's only about a 5-foot easement
Right.
there. So there's some design issues we need to take a look at. But on the west side and some of the other access points, yes, we do have funding in this year.
I mean, the main thing is, kids going to high school, just people accessing the park, is you have areas that are grass. And especially those real long blocks that you have right there, it's really, really inconvenient to not be able to cut through the park, especially in wet weather in the winter. It's really very, very inconvenient. And
Right now they're, maybe 3 feet wide in
they're
certain areas.
Once you go, let's say, we'll start on the east side, side towards Oshkosh North. Once you go between you got the little fences there and the little gravel. Once you leave the little access that goes between the houses, you're on your own. It's grass. There is no place to go. I mean, I would see a little path that would go around the mounds and then, go by the restroom and then come out the west end, where you can stay on a continuous, dry, some kind of path trail,
Yep.
And I think that's really important. I mean, it just makes such a difference in that park.
Yep, we do have the funding for this year. Yep.
So I would recommend that we, for 2016, 17, all the way through, just let it go through as it is right now, because next year they're going to change again, just as 2015 did. And we can go through and prioritize the list when that comes out. But I would think we want to pass the rest of them through.
Well, and then I had one other one, Bill. Excuse me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And that, the next item, in my opinion, before we get into other park, new park accesses and perimeter walks, would be the North High Conservancy path. I mean, in the spring, that is underwater, whether you're walking, biking. Originally, when they laid down the, whatever it is, the tree,
Wood chips?
Wood chips, yeah. They didn't have enough. Even when originally they didn't have enough. And there's some drainage issues there, especially on the east side where it's underwater, in the spring. And I think, I don't know, maybe, that all should be built up. Maybe even needs to have some gravel in some spots and very minimum wood chips put in. Maybe it'd be a good idea to put a paved trail just on the main spur that goes through and pave that and leave all the rest of it as wood chips. But that is not in very good shape. And there again, that would be another really nice access. There again, you have long blocks. You've got, your accesses are not good. You have a high school in the way, and that would really open that park up a lot by having a good way. Because they have the bridge now, since those wood chips were put in, they have that nice little bridge that comes into the high school off of whatever the street that is on the east side there, by the ball, not too far from the ball diamond there. But that would really make a big difference in that park too.
Yeah, give us a chance to take a look at that, Jim, because if it's a wetlands, there may be issues with being able to fill in there and put asphalt or anything in there. We might have to look at boardwalks and certain other ways to get around.
But in the spring, it's impassable. There's probably about a 50-foot section that you basically, it's really hard to get through there in the spring.
So some of it was gravelled initially,
Yeah.
that main loop, and then a lot of the spurs were just wood chips. So we've been working with a group to kind of do some buckthorn removal and restoration out there. So I agree, that's always a wet site, and there's some parts of the trail that are really impassable.
My concern is just the main thoroughfare that goes through there goes from east to west. That's my main concern. The other ones, are wood chips and, whatever you can do is great, but just to have one main access east to west would be really good. That's in good shape, and maybe it needs to have a few little drain tiles in a couple spots just to let the water through, or whatever would have to be done, to meet all regulations.
I made a note. We'll take a look at that, and if we need to, do we want to throw it on the list?
Depends on what the cost would be.
Yeah. That's going to take some time for us to
You'd
go.
have to,
Okay. No, we could take a look at it.
But I think that should be done before any new ones would be coming up. Those are the two in the parks that I can think of.
Okay.
Would work.
Any thoughts on just passing the rest of the CIP through?
Well, I just think doing a 5-year CIP based on this, I mean, I guess I'm okay with it, because I don't know what's going to change every single year. So, I mean, what are we? Are we approving 5 years here? I mean, I think if we do that, we're going to be here all night long, is my point. So,
Well, 5-year CIP essentially is our budgeting document for 5 years. It's our strategic plan. So if you see something that's really, not kosher to you in here, but a lot of it is stuff that we've gone over the last 3 years and said, all right, if it gets bumped from one year, that's going to be a priority the following year.
okay.
So it's part of the city strategic plan that we want to have a 5-year CIP. But yeah, it's a fluid document like anything else.
Okay, and that's fine. And I'll certainly vote for that. But
Yeah.
again, I mean, it seems like we talk about last year, this year, and 2 years ago.
But we can show you, and Chad's working on some of an annual report yet on some of the things in the parks. There are things that are getting done and taken care of off of these lists. So
I think we're doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret this. I have a problem putting CIP budgets together 5 years down the road. So.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to take it that way, but
Okay.
there are
Right.
a lot of projects that, even though we're putting out a $2.8 million wish list, there are projects that are getting funded by the council and also just by working with the groups, whether it's Southwest Rotary or Otter Street Fishing Club or the OIB and Girls Fast Pitch, all those groups, that helps to get some of these projects funded, so.
Sean?
And I think the larger purpose of this really is more so the council had charged the city manager this year with putting together a long-term debt structure going out, which is something we don't have. But so I think this is a practice, basically an exercise that all of the department heads were given. That probably wasn't laid out as definitively as it had been in the past. But I do note, those that 18 and 19, the dollar value on those is down considerably.
Yep.
And I don't know if for the purpose of this exercise that the city manager is doing, if it's helpful to have in that same dollar range. We talked about some of those South Park projects that are on there. Is
Yeah,
worth getting some of those?
we didn't put some of those bigger ones in there, just knowing that we're not going to get a lot of these projects funded in the next 2 years, knowing that those projects are going to get moved back 4 or 5 years. So that $700,000 in 2018 is probably going to build to the $2.83 million once those projects move back. But we do have to take a look at all of the plans now. You've got South Park, you've got Rainbow Park, you've got Menominee Park, you've got the Corp plan. What we tried to do was we took the entire comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and all the high priority, remember back in 3 years ago, we did that Corp and prioritized all the high priority projects were trying to be accomplished in 5 years. So that's where these projects were coming from. If you take a look at the Corp, every one of the high priority projects should be in here or else we've completed it. But now, because the Corp said we need to have a South Park master plan, a Menominee plan, now we're starting to slot some of these other projects in there. So I don't disagree. We should try to keep that if we're going to request $2 million a year, try to keep it fluid and constant. But I think now we'll be able to do that by pushing some of these projects back.
Okay, any other discussion? Need a motion to,
I'll make a motion, we pass it on to the council.
second by Vic.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Kieran's,
Here,
Kowalski,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schusler,
Aye.
Wooler.
I,
Okay, that concludes our park business. Business statements, items that are not on the agenda. Being none, moving on to directors and staff reports. Ray, you're number one.
Give you an update on Bauman Park. If you recall, the last 2 summers, I believe, has been out of commission because of the dewatering bags needed for the creek dredging that was going on. Happy to report that project is done. The dewatering bags are gone. We have put out the replacement of the play equipment, which is in this year's budget. We have RFPs out on that project, and they are due, I believe, next week. What we'll do once we get those projects in, or the proposals for the play equipment, we'll narrow it down to our top 3 or 4 choices, and then what we'll be doing is inviting the neighborhood in, asking them for input on the top 3 or 4 projects, and bring you back to the Parks Board a recommendation on which play structure they want to see. I would expect in our timeline that was going to be sometime in June, so probably the June meeting. They may come to this board already. I need to take a look at our schedule. It might be July. So that project will be moving forward. We'll have new play equipment at Bauman Park by the end of summer. In addition, the youth field, baseball field that was out there was pretty much dissolved. We are looking to replace that with a field similar to Diamond 8. We'd put a backstop and wing fences out there. We are working with our engineering and our stormwater management engineers to get that laid out and working on the funding of that. I believe that the funding will be coming from, a majority of it will be coming from that project because it was a result of the stormwater and the dredging of that facility. And I had some discussions with staff and the city manager on that. So hopefully Bauman Park by the end of summer will be back in operating. The ball diamond, because it's going to take some time for the turf to get established, won't be ready for play until next year, most likely, if we can get the seed down this year. So that'll be nice for the neighborhood over there, and it'll be a nice improvement to a park that has been out of commission for about 2 summers. Any questions on that? Because I know there were people always keeping an eye on Bauman Park. The zoo opened and the amusements opened the first weekend of May. Jenny is not able to be here tonight, so I would let you know that that was part of her report. Had a good weekend. It's been busy. I know this past weekend, the zoo was on the Little Oshkosh. The entire park was busy, so I think we're off to a pretty good start there. speaking of the master plan at Menominee Park, one of the biggest issues has always been the parking and the conflicts between fishermen and boaters, and then the softball use of the parking area. Bill, were you part of the group that Jenny pulled together?
Yes.
Jenny pulled together over the winter months a committee of people from park board members, fishing club, softball, and I think from some of the youth groups as well, to say, what can we do in the interim period until the Menominee Park master plan is incorporated and the parking is a little bit better down here. One of the things that was recommended from that committee was to make some of the single stalls into double stalls. So there's some additional boat trailer parking down there. So if you take a look, Chad worked with our painting crew from the city staff. We upgraded, I think we initially had about 25 to 30 double stalls, what we call them, so fishing and trailer parking. We increased that an additional 18, so they now have close to 50 boat trailer parking stalls down there, which meant a reduction in the single stalls of about 36. So there's less for softball, but there's more for the fishing. And what we did was felt that the single stalls, I think we're at about 180 right now, and close to about 50 for the fishermen. So we're going to give that a try for the summer, see if it reduces the number of complaints that we get that parking lot fills up too quickly with boat trailers. And just letting people know that are there for softball, they need to park on Hazel or some of the side streets within the park if the double stalls are taken.
Yeah, Ray, I think more signage would probably solve a lot of the complaints down there. The biggest problem is, I think we've got a sign on each end of the double stalls, but if somebody pulls into the middle, they don't really know they're parking in a double stall. And like this weekend, we had a lot of new parents down there because of the 8U, 10U type stuff. So they're unaware of the parking situation down there, so I know a lot of them got ticketed. I'm sure you got a few phone calls. But I think if we did a little better with signage down there, I think it would eliminate a lot of problems.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's temporary, I don't know what, but
Maybe we can get some chat on the concrete blocks and get them.
All of our signs, each end of the parking lot at the entrance, both are labeled, or both end with multiple signs, and then we have them in the middle as well that
Okay.
aren't most visible, but they are on the ends.
Okay.
Off Seaward and coming off of Irving or Seaward, two other
Okay.
directions.
So maybe like halfway through the middle section.
They're there.
Putting
They're
one.
just
Are
not
they?
high.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem. If you'd be putting them out in the lane of traffic, which is challenging.
Okay.
And I don't want to turn them sideways because then.
So
you
the
have
minute
cars
somebody
that-
pulls in, you basically can't see the sign.
Yeah, you'd be taking a stall out if
Okay.
you end up
All right.
signing it, basically, so.
Okay. That was the only complaint I heard the weekend. Everybody understands that, boats have the right to those stalls. It's just that they were not aware of it, so.
Yeah.
Would it be wise to maybe have it announced at the games? Because
I think absolutely. We've made that suggestion, but it's just one of those things that kind of gets forgotten about, so,
We did walk around and tell people.
yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
there was actually, I don't know, maybe it wasn't last weekend, maybe the weekend before. Maybe people got confused, they were new to the area, but they actually parked blocking most of the boat launch ramps. They were in the middle, kept right on going. Maybe they just didn't realize it, but I've never seen that. That was a first.
Jenny and I just talked about that today because that happened over the weekend again, so.
Oh, did it happen again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that before now, so that'd be 2 times now.
Yeah. So I think it's part of the education, but I think
Yeah,
there's
right.
there's maybe some additional signage we should look at as well, and we can work with the police department on that. I think that's it, Bill.
Okay, Parks Operation, Chad.
I didn't realize it's been a couple of months I've been at a meeting, so I'm going to speak a lot tonight, if that's all right.
No, it's not.
Turn off his microphone.
Just a couple of updates. I know highlighted through the CIP project, some things that we did work on this winter with the Steiger Park boat launch, the ramps down there that are reconstructed. We did get a lot of complaints over the past couple of years with boats rubbing, lumber issues down there, that we finally had a good winter with all the ice to do work down there. And the guys did a nice job with that. Then also the third part of the cruiser docks up behind the Kiwanis shelter at Menominee Park, which were redone. So that's those have all been refurbished now within the last year and a half, and hopefully they'll last a good as many years as they did before. So I think that's been a nice improvement. I know last year we got great comments from the some of the tournaments, the fishing tournaments that were through there, just to how friendly the cruiser docks worked, and they seem to be doing well. So hopefully the new one will do as well too. with the zoo opening this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, I know we had a lot of work to do and some restoration work, and we did a combined group effort with Bill's crew and our parks crew in regards to the baboon exhibit and trying to look on some other areas down there along the part of the zoo or by the maintenance building that haven't been addressed in a long time. So that was a very nice thing to get through the past month. Currently working on a striping plan for 24th Street parking lot with a consultant in regards of, we've had a lot of issues over the past couple of years regarding, tickets, parking on grass. I guess we're looking more at the consistency around all of our boat launch areas to eliminate grass parking as best we possibly can. But 24th Street is a very, very narrow corridor for a lot of the new boats, trailer, combo units that are down there, so I don't know how well that's going to turn out, but hopefully we'll bring that back here in the next month from that end. This past winter, in regards to Abe Roshland Shelter, the roof was restored back in, that would have been late December, and they finished up here in March. There were some things on our punch list to get through as part of that complete restoration project with the restroom, and also in our long-term project for roof restorations. We were able to save some money to reallocate towards that for this year. So that got completed. Big projects going forward that kind of been hit up on concrete-wise, and I think we're grateful to have a talented concrete crew to work within our own department. With the Tech Miller Park access paths out there is a main priority. Still continuation over at Stevens Park through the Neighbor Works programs to complete that walk and access paths from the main trail over there. West Algoma is on our plate, but may be considered for funding towards deferral towards the all-inclusive playground too. So those are three big ones from our end going on. A couple of nice highlights over the past month with volunteer groups that have helped out down and cleaning at Menominee Park with the Millers Bay Association along the North Shoreline. They had a great group come down and take care of a lot of the issues down there. And this past week we had the Southwest Rotary group at South Park for a cleanup, usually in conjunction with the South Park Middle School. But I don't know how well their success of people. I know they had a great list of people signed up, but I don't know what the participation levels were for that day. Just in staffing, back on March 4th, we had a full-time person leave our department, and we just completed the recruitment process for our trades tech position and had a great candidate within our own division that we promoted. Now we're back with the Human Resources Department on switching a groundsperson position into a trades tech and using that current recruitment process to fill that void. So hoping things go well here over the next couple of weeks that we can get back up to full staff, and I'm looking forward to having all of our seasonal staff, or 90% of them, start next week so we can get caught up in some of the other areas. So that's about all I have for now. So.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Landscape operations, Bill.
Hey, I don't have quite as much to report on, and I won't talk as much because I'm losing my voice anyway. But on the 30th of April, we had our annual Tree City USA Award presented to us as part of the Oshkosh Arbor Day event. And so we're celebrating 33 years as a Tree City USA, so that's kind of cool. The weather actually was nice for the hour that we were doing the program, so it was pretty unbelievable. We've been working on tree replacements and planting memorial trees as the weather cooperates with us, so we're getting into that fairly well at this point. We've also been working on various landscape upgrades, been doing some work down at the Leach Amphitheater. We've been in the process of redoing the traffic islands on Wisconsin and Ohio Street on each side of the bridge. So we're trying to enhance that area. Did a little bit of a project down at the zoo, as Chad mentioned earlier as well. We're also working with a volunteer group. We're planning on doing some landscape restoration at North High. As you may recall, we did remove a lot of the buckthorn that was up there, and so we're going to put in some more desirable plants in some of those vacant areas now. Unfortunately, we were planning to go forward with it again tomorrow as a postponement from a couple weeks ago, but with all the rainy weather, we had to actually push it out another couple weeks. So volunteer group has been real cooperative in working with us on their availability and the attempt to get the job done. And then at the cemetery operations, we're getting things pretty well cleaned up. We're obviously Memorial Day seems like it's coming up in a hurry, so we'll be full staff next Monday, and we'll be working real hard to get that operation all tidied up for Memorial Day. That's about all I have.
Okay. Lakeshore Golf Course, Steve.
Thank you, Bill. Well, the golf course came through the winter better than expected with all the long, cold snap we had and all the ice. I'm very pleased with the condition of the golf course, except for the moisture. We've had the wettest April in history, and May is starting out that way too. So I'm behind on 2 drainage projects and a range tee renovation. And that's going to be, as Bill alluded to, it's going to be set back weeks. But the golf course is in good shape. I want to thank Bill for helping out. He had the forestry crew out and removed a large, ugly old silver maple tree that was becoming hazardous near the 17th tee and the driveway entrance to the clubhouse. So we got that tree out of the way, and I feel a little better for it. We've got some new programs that I alluded to last week, or last month's meeting, but I'll let Trace finish up with the numbers and the more concrete details that he can talk about that we've accomplished, or that have been initiated or we've accomplished so far in the month of April.
So just a little recap on how the season's been going. We did open on April 10th, which I think after the winter was a little surprising to all of us. It was looking like it was going to be later. But then, like Steve said, unfortunately, we had one of the wettest Aprils on record. This is a great year, though, to look back. And if it wasn't been for the renovation back, was it 99 or 2000? I mean, the golf course would have been almost unplayable the entire month. I mean, today's a great example. We got 1.5 inches of rain. And we were actually the only golf course open tonight for leagues in the city. So, I mean, prior to the renovation, there would have been no chance for that. And there was actually 31 cars when I left. So after 1.5 inches, we can still be open and bring in revenue, which is great. And also, obviously, keep the golfers happy because they can play. For the month of April, it turns out we actually ended up doing 260 more rounds, more than last year. We did open earlier, but with all the days of rain, that was still pretty good. And through April, we're about just under $3,400 ahead of where we were last year in revenue compared to 2013. So obviously, we need the weather to cooperate, but even with the poor weather, we've been able to improve on last year. Probably one of the things I'm most happy to see so far this year. If you recall, last year we took a look at the fees for the junior passes, and we lowered it this year. We were at $280 last year. This year went to $200, and last year we sold 3 passes. We've sold 9 so far this year. So in school, and we really don't see more of those sold till school's out typically. So once school year is done and the golf teams finish up their season, those are a lot of the golfers end up buying the passes. So it's very encouraging to see that the move that the board passed through last year is taking, it's working out great for us with revenue-wise. And the young adult pass as well is selling very well, which was second year for it, but it's starting to get out there a little bit more throughout the campus. We just, for the most part, all leagues are going. We just started taking entries for the city match play tournament. With qualifying takes place on June 7th, which is one of our 2 larger events, and we'll push that hard, and hopefully we'll get over 100 players like we have in previous years.
Okay, that's it. All right.
How are people responding to the big hole, the big hole concept out there?
I've seen a few people playing to them. I mean, a lot of it is just new, educate them to use them. One thing I've seen, though, with the weather, as bad as it's been, we've seen a lot of our regular golfers. I'm hoping as the weather gets nicer and we get into the warmer weather, we start seeing, more beginners and juniors once the weather cooperates, because it's been the weather's been so poor, it's almost been like the diehards that we're seeing out there so far this year. But I have seen a few juniors over spring break. I saw some juniors playing to them. And the leagues have taken to them as well. They've already been talking about utilizing them later in the year for some special events for fun nights and whatnot.
Trace, with new people that come to the pro shop, to the clubhouse there, do you explain to them on the front nine that there are 2 sets of tees and what it's about?
Yeah, we try to mention to them because there are 2 sets of pins in the greens with the big cups, and the one is smaller. Another, the regulation flag stick is for normal height, and the other one is like a putting green flag stick. So we would try to mention to them the differences and why there is a shorter pin on the front 9 greens, because with the 9th green being right next to the clubhouse, a lot of people come in and ask us right away, what's up with the little yellow flag stick out there? So we explain it to them at that point.
Good, good. Okay, that concludes director and staff reports. We have a next meeting scheduled for June 9th, right here, same time, same station. Need a motion to adjourn? Bill, second? Carrie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.